Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in, welcome on, welcome to another episode of the Direct Podcast. Everything you need to know about the universes you love. I'm your host, Matt Roembke, and I'm joined as always by my friend, co-host, box office correspondent, and senior editor at thedirect.com, Mr. David Thompson. David, happy Thursday. How are you?
Happy Thursday. I'm doing well, man. We are 1 week away from the epic Agatha finale, which is so crazy to say. I feel like it genuinely flew by for me. Even with it being a 9 episode series, obviously it's less weeks, but wow, I can't believe it's almost Halloween. We're getting the Agatha finale. We're almost in November, and Agatha is kind of like the tell for me, like, oh, it's ending. It's about to be November.
Woo! It's exciting stuff. Spooky season in full effect. Have you watched Hocus Pocus yet?
No, but we've been watching Harry Potter, which we've
There you
talked
go.
about on the fall draft for me and Jack Puce. Shout out Jack, a fall thing. Um,
Yes.
and yeah, so we're on Order of the Phoenix right now, which I gotta say,
Good
shout out. We
movie.
haven't finished it yet. Um, it's better than I remembered. I remember not liking that movie as much. I've liked it. We like have we fell asleep last night trying to finish it. So we just have like we're at the very end. Better than I remember, I gotta say.
Is that the super green one where everything's got this green filter on it?
I don't think so.
No, no, no. That's uh
Half-Blood Prince?
Half-Blood Prince.
This is the one where it's Umbridge comes in.
Yeah.
And I
Oh,
remember the first time
legendary.
watching that movie being like, this lady is the most annoying thing on planet Earth. But this time watching it, like I kind of buy into the whole like lore of the Order of the Phoenix, literally, and then it being like Dumbledore's army and like all that stuff like really worked for me this time. And the fighting at the end is actually really cool. And just like the Harry Potter is so cool, just like the series, because the progression of the plot bit by bit, it's so interesting how it's laid out. And they really just kind of leave you on the hook so much. Like they really,
Yeah.
it's like they don't give you like an epic Voldemort fight like really early on and then like a rematch later. It's just like slowly trickles one by one.
Really good movies, really good books, I'm sure. That's the really horny one too, right? With
It's
is that the
Cho.
one where Ron and old girl are fooling around?
Um, I don't think so. Or
No, 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 no.
the
It's one
Goblet
with
of
Cho Chang.
Fire. Yeah,
Goblet of
Cho is
Fire.
in this
That's what it
one.
is.
Yeah,
It's the Goblet of Fire.
Goblet of Fire is where things get ramped up a level in terms of like romance, horniness,
Yes.
because that's when the ball happens. They got like Crumb or
Hmm.
whatever, the like Rob Gronkowski looking guy, the Quidditch
Yeah.
player goes with
Victor
Emma
Crumb.
Watson. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's that one with God, what's her name? Her last name is Brown. I forget her first name. The one who's in love with Ron. Like
Yes.
she is hysterical in that movie, dude. Like
Yeah.
anytime Ron moves, she's just
Or no.
Ooh.
That's next movie. That's Half-Blood Prince, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, that's the only good thing in that movie then.
That part's really funny.
It's so funny, dude.
Isn't it a
Every time Ron
spell?
does anything, she's just like, oh.
Yeah, right. I
It's
forgot about that.
it's so overdone, but she rocks it. She rocks it
Yeah.
so well. Good stuff. Man, I could talk about Harry Potter all day. I love it.
Magic, wizards, witches. We're here, man.
Witch shit, dude. We're here to talk about witch shit. Agatha All Along, episode 7. The Patty LuPone episode, the Lilia episode,
We
something we
got it.
didn't see coming. So excited to talk about it, David. I have no idea how you feel. I cannot wait to see what you think about it. But first, we have to get in there. We have to do our spoiler-free. You saw Venom. Spoiler-free overall thoughts. Just real quick, what did you think of Venom: The Last Dance as people get ready for the weekend, as they get ready to head into theaters to watch Ed Hardy's magical send-off?
It's magical, all right. No, that movie sucks.
Ah,
I
damn.
took me and my buddy, and he's like, yeah, I like Venom. Like he's a fan of the franchise. I'm like, oh, like, cool. Like come to this early presser with me. Like that'll be a lot of fun. It was fun, but it wasn't
Good.
good, right? Like the movie, no, nothing about the film was really great, like stuck out to me in a really like a positive way. Like there's some moments like we'll talk about in the full review of like winners, losers, all that stuff. But overall, like lackluster, and it's shocking to me. It's my last thing. It's shocking to me people online are saying it's the best one yet. I don't agree with that. I wouldn't, and it would be hard for me to sit there. I'd have to really like look at all three and be like, which one is the best? But this one to me isn't like standing above the rest in any real way. So I'm excited for you to see it, just for us to talk about it. And there is a lot to talk about. I just I did not like it. Like it was I kind of wanted to, but it was what I expected in terms of this franchise. So in that sense, it's no surprise.
Sure, sure. I'm going with my little brother this weekend. It's a Barlow movie. It's a Barlow movie. I just hope it's fun. So
Yeah,
we will see. We will check out Venom's Last Dance, and then maybe the week after that we will review the 10-part docuseries, The Last Dance, about the Chicago Bulls.
I'd love to
Um,
do that.
yeah, that'd be fun. But right now we are not here to talk about Venom or the Chicago Bulls. A sentence I never thought I'd say. But we're here to talk about Agatha All Along, episode 7, David Thompson. Your overall thoughts on this penultimate question mark episode, kind of, right?
Penultimate week, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I loved it. I thought this was a
Yeah.
great episode. This is probably my second favorite behind last week's. This is not a spoiler, but I'm a big fan of wibbly wobbly woobly time travel shit. Like that is a huge
Sure.
Back to the Future is my favorite movie, point blank. And so like knowing that about me, this really kind of like drew me into like what was happening with Lilia's character. And that's kind of a tease for what we're gonna talk about in spoilers there. But I thought it was very well constructed. I think this might be the most tightly well constructed episode, with a nice one part, two part, three act kind of system in one episode. It had a perfect runtime to me, not too long, not too short. Nothing was off the beaten path, literally. Like I guess the castle was, but nothing else. I didn't feel like we were kind of getting too much extra. It didn't feel like episode 5 to me, where it was too short and almost like not enough. I thought it was very, very well done. I thought to me it did feel very penultimate episode ish, leading into what the finale episodes 8 and 9 are going to be next week. And yeah, once again, I thought it was great.
Yeah, I think that looking at this episode, digesting it, I watched it last night,
Yeah,
instead of this morning, and just kind of thinking through this whole series so far as we get into the finale, the two-part finale coming next week. This might be hyperbole a little bit, but like if you take out the whiz bang, the comic book action of it all, which is such a big part of the genre, right? It's
totally.
you can't have comic book movies without those big action pieces that we all love.
Mhm.
If you can take that out and put it to the side, this is one of the more well-rounded Disney Plus shows we've gotten. I think when you look
Mhm.
at the different styles isn't the right word. That's more of a WandaVision thing. But the different types of episodes we've gotten, like, we started off hot with those first two, this witch mystery, super witchy fanboy stuff, really just setting the tone for this spectacular show. And then you get the Monster of the Week, the Trial of the Week episodes there in the middle, which were super fun and
Wah,
goofy, but also
wah.
had, huh? A womp womp. You gave me a womp womp there. Let me have my moment, David. Jeez. No, but you get the setup in the first few with this great mystery. What are we solving? Who's who? Everything's shrouded in, this shadow of darkness. And then you get those trial of the week episodes, which I think are fun and poppy, and they have a lot of scare elements to them too, with this Salem 7 and the demon stuff, and Deborah Jo Rupp dies and all this stuff. And I think
Right.
that's like a really entertaining chunk of this. And then these last two episodes dive into that like Marvel Cinema shit, where it's like it's a little more thought provoking, and it's got this like more intensity to it, a little more edge of your seat, and I think when you take all of that together, we've gotten a really awesome show that has a little something in it for everybody at different points. And I think that it teeters that line where it's not inconsistent, but it's always keeping you guessing on what you're going to get week by week. And
Mhm.
which, when you look at it, those episodes you don't like, that three run, the trials of the week, it
Yeah.
felt predictable, right? But
Mhm.
these last two episodes, I think retroactively kind of turned that on its head, where you didn't really know what was going on, and it fills in a lot of gaps. And really impressed with how this show, like we say about everything, kind of makes me care about all these characters, but also never loses itself, and it still has fun. It's committed as hell to whatever this witch bit is.
Right.
And I'm really excited to see how they close it up. If we know anything about Marvel Television, with that big action pop that we're bound to get over the next two episodes, right? We got probably an hour, hour and a half left of this show. There's going to be some sort of back and forth action, something going on, right? It's
I
a
hope
comic book
so.
movie. It's a
Yeah.
comic book movie. And I think that, we could, if they can land this plane even relatively well, we can be looking at a really well balanced show, which I did
Mhm.
not see coming in the first couple episodes. Like my first tweet about this show when I saw the screeners was it's never goofy enough to be silly, but never serious enough to be boring. And I think it's really jump rope that line really well. Like I'm having fun, but I'm also really interested. And I don't really know what's going on, but I also kind of know what's going on. And then total left turn. I never knew what was going on the whole time. Um, awesome spinoff of WandaVision also at the end of it.
Mhm.
It's so WandaVision this episode. Jack Schaefer, she will be talked about later. And I think that there's just a lot to love about this show. And if you don't love it, there's nothing offensive going on, as far as like it's not deadbeat bad at any point, especially these last 2 weeks when they've dove into that more traditional MCU mystery of it all,
Yeah.
which is exciting. So
It's
let's dive
also,
into it.
yeah,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
quickly in non-spoilers, on you made a great point. Like it's also not trying to do too much to me as
Right.
well. Like it is just totally staying in its lane. It's WandaVision spin-off. It's playing within the characters that it has at its disposal. Like last week with Ralph Boner coming back. Like that was a fun moment. As someone who, like I mentioned, like didn't like the Ralph Boner thing in WandaVision, him coming back and being able to see him years later was a pretty cool moment, and like the consistent now discussion of the Scarlet Witch and Wanda, like all of that works really well. I feel like this is an example of what we're going to see with Marvel Television going forward, where it's like, yes, it is in this greater universe, but maybe it won't have the biggest impacts going forward, but it is impacted by the greater universe.
Yeah, and I think you can even extrapolate that even further into kind of understanding not just what the show is, but when the show is too, because you look at it, we've had, I would say, since Infinity War, four like themed shows, on Disney Plus. Werewolf by Night, super spooky, really great. Hawkeye, a Christmas show, I think crushes it as a Christmas show.
Yeah.
Guardians Holiday Special, obviously a holiday special, but does really well at that. And then this being this Halloween show in the middle of October, I think they're understanding the assignment well, not just with the shows themselves, but also like where the audience is at that certain point in time.
Right.
And they even have nods, and WandaVision did this so well, where they have nods to where like they're saying the things that the audience is saying in the show, and we'll talk about that more later. But like the awareness of Jack Schaefer and this creative team seems to be a huge asset when you're doing such a unique niche show. Like there's nothing safe about this show, but it feels like they are hitting a baseline every single week, which is a
Mhm.
really fun thing to watch. The viewing experience of this show for me has been fantastic.
Mhm.
And I hope for people like you who didn't love the middle chunk of it, at
Yeah.
least the mystery has been keeping you involved and we're getting paid off on that mystery really well, I think. And it's really exciting to follow along. And now we're here at the finish line where, we still have questions, but we have so many answers as well, which is always a fine line to toe, um, especially in comic book shows. Let's move into it. Let's bring in Mr. Michael Keaton as we dive into spoilers.
Lights out! Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
All right, David Thompson, Agatha All Along, the Lilia trial episode. Um, we got one more theme for you. You know what I mean? Like iconic witches is the theme. And before we get into winners and losers, I do just have to talk about the iconic witch aesthetic of this, where we got the Snow White, we got the Sleeping Beauty, we got the Wizard of Oz. Makes my heart so goddamn happy. Like it was so just they don't talk about it too much. Don't what are you wearing? I don't want to talk about it. This is offensive. And just like all like the base witch stuff that is for whatever reason here is it's just I eat it up, dude. I eat it the fuck up. Pop culture is so awesome. And to see Agatha as the Wicked Witch and to see Billy as Maleficent and all those things, like It was such a iconic look. And I before we get into Will Winters, I did just want to shout that out. Like iconography of this, I think this is probably our last one. Couldn't be happier with how much they played with witch shit throughout this
Yeah.
series.
And it's funny to your point in spoiler free section. I meant to say this then was that this episode perfectly encapsulated that like mix of like not taking itself too seriously, but also like not being serious enough to be boring. And like this
Mhm.
is to me like now that we're in spoilers, like Billy in like the Maleficent get up, like the Halloween costume essentially, and Catherine Hahn doing a Wicked Witch like cosplay, and it being this like serious scene though, but it's kind of like there's a part at the beginning when they first start taking out the tarot cards. I'm like, this is totally ridiculous, but like
Yeah.
I'm into it, you know. Like, I'm like I'm watching as a serious audience member, but like the screen is just looks hilarious,
Yeah.
like especially like and this like Billy like him in like the Maleficent like headgear, and it's just literally it looks like a costume, you know. I mean literally like it looks like a like Halloween costume, like the side of it almost kind of like isn't perfectly flush with his face and stuff like that. I honestly really enjoyed that, and I thought it was really funny Catherine Hahn being the Wicked Witch with Wicked coming out in a couple of weeks now. It's like, oh, that's so funny. um yeah, I enjoyed that aspect as well.
We thought it was the year of monkeys. No, no, no. It's the year of the Wicked Witch. Um, I just let's remember how much monkey stuff we got this year. You know, it's crazy.
First half
It's
of 2026, man. Yeah. Or
hella monkey.
2024. Yeah. Yeah.
So many monkeys. And also, oh, wait a minute. The Wicked Witch. What is her little shark? Oh, yeah, the flying monkeys. More monkey stuff, man. It's awesome. um,
Just
love
wait
it.
for
Love to see it.
Deadpool. Or not Deadpool, Venom 3.
Is there any monkeys? No monkeys?
There might be. I don't know.
There might be a monkey. Wow. Venom monkey. Venom monkey. Love to see it. Venom monkey. Yeah, that's how you would do that. Venom monkey. David Thompson, Agatha All Along, episode 7. What was your biggest winner, your MVP? What worked the best for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it was Lilia's story, but taking it a step kind of further, I think it was Lilia's the way in which it was told. It was the unraveling and the
So
mind jumping around different points. I think the most prevalent, the most impactful was her and her mom when she was a kid training centuries ago, and kind of like the back and forth of that, and like the flick in
amazing.
between of like her actually in that moment and her like from the future. I thought it was really powerful stuff. And I thought it was a look into it was a really, like I mentioned in non-spoiler section, like as a huge fan of like time travel stuff, a really fun spin on that where it's like she's not necessarily time traveling, but her consciousness kind of like flicks through time uncontrollably, and seeing that unravel. And I felt like you mentioned before in those episodes prior, it felt like there were a couple of like missing puzzle pieces that were still somewhere in the living room that were under the couch that you couldn't find. And this episode was putting those back onto the board and like collecting and being like, oh, like that's why that happened. Now that makes sense. And then I thought a really powerful sacrifice scene at the end, like a really,
So
really
good.
good one. Very, very MCU. And very powerful, and I think worked well. And I appreciated how we've been saying for weeks after episode 3, we're like, Lilia's probably coming up, right? Her episode, right? It's gonna be her house. I loved how it was patient and waited, and we got to last week where we saw her being the one that put the sigil on Billy and all these things because she ended up being one of the best characters in the entire series. You know, I'd argue the best new character in the entire series, at least so far. Like she had a really great arc, and this episode really made me love her even more. Patty LuPone obviously does a phenomenal job throughout the entire thing.
Unreal.
I thought she was really on fire when she's just sitting there reading the cards, like just she'd do like the like quick little descriptions of what it means and like and how it connects to each person or what's happening around them. And yeah, there's a groove that this episode hit that hasn't been hit in the entire series, and that was awesome.
Yeah, it was such an awesome use of the vehicle of like you had this character, the Premonition Witch, who throughout the whole series has had these random flashes of, just random thoughts, right? And they explain it in episode 2. is the premonition witch. She sees into the future. Like that's what's going on with her. She's having these random episodes like that. And it was so goofy at first, right? And am I quirky or am I what is it? I forget what it is.
I don't remember.
But like it had such a silly, vibe around it the whole time. And Pat LuPone, playing it up like that. And the fact that they were able not just to reuse all of that in this episode, but to use it to help Lilia solve the mystery of what's going on, Tara, and they do such a good job with the Tara of it all too, because Catherine Hunn's like, it's random, it's subjective, it's whatever you
Yeah, it
think it
doesn't
might
matter.
be.
It's yeah.
But they do such a good job showing it's not random if you have this skill. Like
Mm,
like the reason she's able to predict everything is because she's already fucking lived it.
right.
And it I didn't notice it until about halfway through the episode, and I kind of had the feeling someone pointed out on Twitter that
Mm,
this whole episode, as soon as Lilia gets involved, was how Lilia lives her life. She lives her life jumping around to all these different times, forgetting what she just saw, remembering things, but also like missing out. Like when she flashes back, she misses out on what happens in real time.
right.
And that's like this episode wasn't just random flashbacks. This is what she experiences day after day. What a horrible life that
Yeah.
she must have lived this entire time. And it was such, you know, I know, I know people don't want to use big words when they're talking about Marvel and comic book movies, but it really was a beautiful showing of how this witch lives her life and how she uses it to do her thing and help. And the ending is such an awesome moment when you realize like that moment in death was just another moment on her timeline, because as soon as that happens, she goes right back to the beginning, and she's confident and happy, and she has a better understanding of what's about to happen. And you have to imagine Lilia from that point forward is going to live a better life with those gaps filled. And it was so cool and engaging, because there's that element of you don't know what's going on because they're jumping around so much. But once you kind of
Yeah.
understand the pacing of it, it's such an awesome storytelling beat. And they have these great, just opening shots into the different scenes that tell you where she is. Like when they're in the tunnel and she falls down. Okay, now we're here. And then when they're in the tunnel and she's talking to Sashir Zameda,
Yeah.
and okay, now we're here. And
Right.
you already told me all this. Well, wait a minute. What does that all mean? Now we come back and we
That
figure
part,
out what it all means.
yeah,
And
that part was essential to me. The cave with Jen and like that,
yeah,
and her being like, "You the one that told me this." You're right. And it's like, oh, okay, like now I'm kind of getting more so how it works, and that helped out throughout the rest of the episode, kind of like follow along.
it reminded me of Alice's episode where, like, once she finally plays the song, she can see the curse, and now she can beat the curse. Once Lilia
Mm,
finally understands the purpose of that death moment, she can then go back and use that to solve this puzzle and help her
mm,
friends move forward. And
right.
it's just such an awesome way to do it. And Patti LuPone just knocked it out of the fucking park. She was funny, she was sad, she was kind of a badass at points, which was a really cool
Totally.
thing, especially in the Glinda gear. And just being the good witch, and like she always has been this entire time. And Palipone just absolutely crushed. Also, what a beautiful human being. We get to see, like, she has that big red lipstick a lot of the time, which has that kooky grandma thing. Is it? Yeah,
Yeah.
kooky is one of the words.
Kooky.
She's got
Yeah.
that kooky grandma vibe the entire time, but when she boils down to it, she's just amazing in this role. And her dynamics with literally every single witch in the coven, her and Billy, her and Agatha, her and Jen, like just aces across the board for her. And just that vehicle, such an awesome thing. And
Yeah.
that leads into my winner is Jack Schaefer. She is a force when she's doing this storytelling thing, man. She wrote WandaVision. She directed this episode. She wrote this entire series. She
Mm,
understands
yeah.
not
Good
just
call.
her characters, but what the audience thinks about her characters so well. She knows what we're feeling as she writes these things out, and she plays on that. Like I feel like I have to imagine. Did you read Shakespeare in middle school? Did you guys
Yeah.
do that?
Of course.
Did you guys have that book that had the Shakespeare on the left, but then almost like a translation on the right?
Yeah,
kind of
I know what you're
thing.
talking about. Or it would be like in the footnotes. I don't think it was
Right.
directly like that, but like, yes, I know what you're talking about.
Especially for those like hyper Shakespeare moments where like those words don't exist anymore. How the hell are we supposed to know what we're reading? They have those little footnotes. I feel like on Jack Schaefer's scripts for both WandaVision and this show, on the side, she has like, okay, after this, this is what the audience is going to be feeling. After this is what the audience is going to be feeling. And she uses those notes to play into what she's writing. And I just think I felt it so much in WandaVision, and I felt it so much here where like she knows exactly what the audience is going to be going through throughout these episodes, and she uses that to help tell her story. And that is such an awesome, transparent thing in this entire series. I feel like Christopher Nolan does that all the time too, playing with our expectations, not based on what we think we know about the product, but what we've been shown moments earlier, episodes earlier, an hour earlier, whatever it might be. It's
Yeah.
just, it's a really amazing, like I said earlier, viewing experience. I love watching Jack Schaefer stuff because I feel like she is just so in touch with the show, the fans, and using those together. It was just really, really just ballpark work. If there's ever a Scarlet Witch movie, if Jack Schaefer's not involved, we've done something terribly wrong.
Yeah, that will be interesting. That's actually a really great point because I wonder on Jack Schaefer what her future at the MCU is, and if she has one. Because I feel like, I mean, this seems to be a success enough where maybe she will be involved. Is she involved in the Vision show? I think she might be. But
Probably.
I'm not sure she's like the gonna be like the showrunner like this for that. But we'll see. I mean, look, Matt Shakman's directing the Fantastic Four. So who knows? I mean, in that sense, the sky is the limit. And I hope she does stick around because you're definitely right in the sense of like, I didn't love this middle episodes or whatever, but the payoff has been really, really solid so far.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
really excited to see what happens now in the next couple of episodes where I necessarily wasn't. And like you made a great point. She herself directed this episode, can totally tell. So she directed episode 7 and then she also directed episodes 1 and 2. And like honestly, I can tell. And I mean that's not to say anything bad about the other directors, but like to me that's noticeable. Those have been 3 of the strongest episodes for me. That and last week. So
Yeah. And the very first thing I did after this episode was get on Jack Schaefer's IMDb and see if she's involved with Fantastic Four at all. Because, they got Shackman over there. I can't imagine that Shackman didn't learn a lot from Jack Schaefer during
right.
WandaVision. You know what I mean? Like those two together, I thought were perfect because the storytelling with the directing style was like harmony at its best. Seeing Jack Schaefer, do this without Shackman, just she's the Belichick in the room. It feels like, and
I think
that's a
she
awesome
yeah.
thing.
I think Scarlet Witch movie I think is definitely a good guess. I think maybe if they do a Young Avengers thing, she could be involved in that.
Sure.
Yeah, who knows?
Well, what I would like to see, how Kevin Feige's role in the early Infinity War, Infinity Saga rather, based on the MCU book that I read. Like he was there to comb through all the scripts, comb through all the stories, and fill in, the spots that make this connected universe a connected universe. Like here's what you need to do to make this feel one within the movie and within the different movies within the phases, right? I want Jack Schaefer to come in and be like an MCU producer where she goes in and she just gives advice or counsel on, okay, here's your script. Here's what the audience is going to be feeling after Act One. How can you use that information to influence Act Two into Act Three? Like I would love
Right.
for her to be involved in just kind of the pacing of MCU stuff moving
Hmm.
forward or just other movies and shows because I think she's such an asset in just how her brain works, looking at these things, not just through the characters, not just through the story, but also what the audience is feeling as well. It's really I've been thinking about it since last night. I just can't believe how in touch this show is with the real-time watching of it all. And awareness, dude. Awareness is the number one thing with these types of comic book movies that like if it's not going to be Black Panther or uh Winter Soldier or something like that where it's like cinema or whatever, when you're going to have fun, when you're going to have these like niche different types of projects, you need to understand the commitment and you need to understand the influence that this show has. Like, the back to the Venom thing, real quick. A lot of people saying it's the most fun of the three, which makes it the best. I can totally see that because it has committed to what it is. Fast and Furious. Like those movies got
Right.
good when they committed to what they were.
Yeah,
And it's just a really cool thing to see,
totally.
especially in this show. Um, LVPs, what didn't work for you? What was your biggest loser coming out of episode 7?
Well, so mine's gonna be a like non-LVP into another MVP slash top play because that's kind of how I wanted to address this. Um, I want to see more Aubrey Plaza, LVP. However, the reveal as death was really cool. I really liked the design they showed with like the skull-like face. That looked dope. Such a shame it was leaked the entire duration of this series. Everyone saw it coming, and it was really obvious, kind of like the hints they such a shame. Like those hints that we saw in the early episodes that they then showed us again in this episode. It was already obvious the first time because we already had it in our head that she was going to be death at the end. So in a way, the leak is a loser, right? That brought down the reveal in this episode. Execution wise, I thought was awesome. I thought it was great. Especially like I said, like Rio herself being revealed and seeing that moment, and now what that means for the future. Like that totally sets her up to be this huge, huge character in the final two episodes and potentially I hope have a maybe a future in the MCU.
Yeah, and it's really funny. I got a cousin-in-law who him and his daughters, they watch the show and also listen to the podcast. Shout out to McGriffs. They Ian texted me a couple days ago after he watched last week's episode, and he said, "Is Rio death?" Question mark. And because he hadn't seen the leaks, I
Yeah.
just sent the eyeballs emoji. So like, imagine if you didn't know. If you
Right.
didn't know, what a fucking reveal, man! Like
Yeah.
what a cool moment to go back and be like, oh my god, it was her the whole time, kind of thing. And
Totally.
like that reveal was very awesome. Obviously we saw it coming because of the leaks, but I just think that they played it off so well, and also the implications moving forward. Obviously, like that was the last card played on the tarot board, but also like they all now know that Catherine Hahn knows that Rio's death. And
Hmm.
what does that mean? Not just for the Coven, but what does that mean for the Witch's Road? You know what I mean? Like, how did Rio get there? Do we all know? Like, do we all really know? And
Exactly.
when you go back to what this show is kind of plot wise based off, the song, the Witches Road song, which was an LVP for me early, and it has played so well, I think, moving forward.
Mhm.
You know, to glory at the end. What's at the end of every road? Death. Like the idea that death is at the end of the Witches Road changes how we look at this whole thing completely.
Huh.
Because like you
Right.
got it, you and somebody pointed out on Twitter, I didn't save it, so shout out to whoever pointed this out, but like the idea that at the end you either have to meet death or make a deal with death. And did Agatha already do that? Has she ever been on the road? Who's going to make a deal at the end? Like, I think that's going to be a big moment in the next 2 weeks is
Hmm.
who is going to handle the death part the best. When you ask for what you want, not only what are you asking for, what are you giving up? And are you making a deal or are you sacrificing yourself like Lilia did? Like it's a really like Alice did, and Deborah Jo Rupp didn't sacrifice herself, but
No.
it's one of those things where Jen, Billy, and Agatha now are all going to be confronted with whatever's at the end of this road, which we now know is death. And
Hmm.
what's the last card? What's at the end? What are we going toward? Death. Rio is death. Like it's a really cool spin, and we talked about it last week. I think the Billy reveal when it came allowed for them to have this episode stand by itself and flesh out so many things. And then next week we have 2 episodes to deal with the whole death thing.
Hmm.
And I think that is such a great execution overall throughout this entire season. And it's really exciting that this has been one of the biggest problems, not just with Marvel TV, but also just Disney Plus overall, is
Hmm.
where you introduce something so late and don't have time to do anything with it. Now they have 2 episodes to flesh out the Rio death thing. And they've sprinkled so much in throughout the season where I don't think it's going to feel rushed. I don't think it's going to be adverse. And I can't wait to see the other side of the door next week, as we move into whatever the final stage is, which of course will be Billy's trial, and that's going to be such an awesome, tense thing. And yeah, it's really exciting. As far as LVP, I don't really have one.
Yeah.
I thought this episode was, I'm not going to say it was like perfect, but it definitely didn't drop at any point for me.
Mm,
Um, and that kind of moves me in top plays, something that I think is going to get forgotten, and as it should. The 5 to 10 minutes before Lilia shows back up, the Billy Agatha stuff, that tension, that relationship, that chemistry is still so there, right? And
yeah.
Billy's fed up with it and he's mad, and you're gonna get a nosebleed trying to read my mind that hard. Like what a crazy fucking like thing to say to the kid who's just figuring it out, right? Am I Billy or am I William? Like the Billy stuff is still so there, the Agatha stuff is still so there, and they couldn't have been more side characters in this show. I mean, in this episode. So that's top play for me is just the continuing of Billy and Agatha having this incredible chemistry that we've seen since day one.
Yeah, it's that was definitely a top play for me as well. Just seeing them now back and forth with kind of like both their guards down was what kind
Hmm.
of I thought. It's like, all right, like
Cards on the table.
yeah, exactly. Cards on the table, like everything's out in the open. Let's be real here. And just enjoyed that conversation. Yeah, I had a few top plays.
Bunch of them.
The death reveal, obviously that's like number one for me. And then I was gonna
Sexy?
huh?
Was that sexy or creepy or a little bit of both?
When it's Aubrey Plaza, it's always a little bit of both.
I did not see them doing
The
the full
face.
face. Like
Really good. Looks
like
great.
not just even like kind of a mask cut. Like that is haunting stuff.
I really like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry.
no, you're good. The other top, a few Lilia top plays because I think she
Yeah.
definitely deserves it. The first one was when it's that last conversation with her mom back in like the past. I thought that was just like really
Amazing.
poignant. I mentioned it earlier. It's just like hit me in all the feels. Like that's how you use time travel ish kind of stuff in like a very like relevant way. And she knows, right? It reminded me of something where it's like they know you're gonna go through all of this, and like she kind of knows too, and now she's just figuring it out. Like, God, I couldn't put my finger on like what it reminded me of, you know?
Doctor Strange, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. It's nothing Marvel though. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
Oh,
Someone in the comments maybe help
okay.
me out. The other one I had with Lilia was the sacrifice moment where it's like that one tarot card like reversed or unreversed. Then
Tower
it
reverse, yeah.
becomes like whoosh, like and then all their faces and just like the flip and her letting go. Like the cinematography there was really strong. That was where you know it's been well reported. This is the least expensive MCU series so far. And in this episode, I thought they used the budget really well. The death CGI seemingly, and then that final shot too, where it's like really cool, kind of like flip and turn on its head in terms of like the gravity, the swords falling, Lilia hanging, and then the fall. That I thought was very beautifully shot, and just looked phenomenal. So yeah, those were a few I had.
Yeah, it was really cool. Another quick Jack Schaefer moment that I'm just giving her credit for is, is Wanda Maximoff really dead? No. Yes. Maybe.
Maybe,
And
yeah,
Billy goes, "Well, did you see a body?" Like she knows exactly what we're thinking. Like
yeah,
like
exactly.
that is the comic book rule. It's probably the comic book rule. Did you see a body?
Mm,
And it goes right back to the whiteboard in WandaVision where every single thing they wrote down is stuff we're talking about on Twitter. And it's almost like it's an episode of SNL or South Park where they're writing it week by week, you
right,
know? And it's just really cool. I thought that was a cool little nod to MCU fans. The fact that the Wicked Witch was based on Agatha, hilarious. Um,
right.
come on. I mean, that was too easy. She's Jolene and the Wicked Witch. Come on. I mean, is she the most evil person that's ever existed? It's I thought that was really cool.
Jolene and the Wicked Witch. That's so
Yeah,
funny.
who else? Um, and then yeah, we kind of talked about the rest of the top plays I had.
Yeah,
Just Lilia's whole, just the timeline of it all. Like I want somebody to cut together this episode in linear order. Like to have it be played out as it
totally.
really was. But I love the POV of Lilia, and it's so intense, and it's intense but goofy. It's such a fun balance of things.
The only
And
other oh sorry. I
no,
just
no,
have
go
the
ahead.
one more Lilia top play quickly was just when she remembered what she did to Billy. Like when that comes back to her, like that memory of putting the sigil on him. I'm like, oh, like that's cool. Like it's cool. Like now she's like
Mhm.
remembering and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
she got it. And the another moment that was awesome is like Billy talking to Lilia without Lilia saying anything. And
Yeah, right.
Lilia's like, "You're reading my mind right now." And Billy's like, "It's so loud. How can I not?"
Yeah,
And this episode showed how loud her mind is, always moving back and forth between time. Like a very cool thing.
definitely.
How this and this is when we get deep, nerd. This is when we go deep, new rock stars shout out. This is where we get really into it. Does this
Right.
affect the TVA at all? Like, we talked a lot about time in this episode, and
Hmm.
you know, spoilers for those who don't know, time is a very big deal in the MCU and how it works and how we flesh through it. So I just thought that, when she said, time isn't linear and a lot of people don't understand that, I was like, wow, that's something that you would hear a TV agent say,
Right.
TVA agent say. Um, I just thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it is interesting. We've time and time again in the MCU seen different ways to travel time. Like I'm thinking of four immediately off the top of my head. This, the TVA, Tony Stark in Endgame, and then the Time Stone. What else?
Kamala. Kamala
Mmm,
went back in time.
Kamala.
People forget.
Then that was
People
awesome.
Yeah, it was. It was really cool. And just stuff like that. Like there's so many ways to do it, it feels like.
Yeah, damn, that's true. There are so many ways. Like, and then, and
Mhm.
that's fascinating to me because I feel like in once again a meta idea, and this was the most I would calling this time travel, quote unquote, is kind of a stretch.
Sure.
It's consciousness jumping
Yeah.
kind of or so,
Which is kind
but
of what Kamala was.
right, yeah, very fair points. It really like the TVA, that's time travel. Tony Stark, time travel. Doctor Strange, time looping, but still time travel, certainly. Reversing time almost. Yeah, exactly. Like the manipulation of time, less of like jumping to a certain point.
Which they did in this episode when they turned the table, the time went reversed.
Right. Very cool.
As soon as
Uh
Lilia showed up, of course.
yeah, exactly. But I think like back to what you're talking about with like kind of they know what we're thinking in a sense, like the MCU and Kevin Feige and everything. It's like, oh, how does time travel work in the MCU? Well, it works in many ways, right? Like it's not just one way. I think like the TVA is like the iteration that like it tries to explain it to us the most, and like kind of like what we've seen in that sense. But generally speaking, there are different ways, and some of it does involve magic, which does get a little wibbly wobbly woobly in sense of like how can we explain it? So there's scientific, there's power, there's magic, all these things with time travel, and I mean we're certain to with this multiverse saga probably see more of it.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna be really interesting. And heading into next week, I obviously Rio confronting Agatha and Billy is going to be the big one.
Yeah,
What's Jen doing?
that was my question too, because Jen's kind of the loose end a little bit.
Hmm.
And in terms of like this thrown together coven, which makes me think she's going to be a bit of the focus next episode to then set up what will be the finale right afterwards, where it is more of like a culminating clash between these three supers, quote unquote. It's where it's more so like if it Wiccan, Agatha, and Death feel more like superheroes
Right,
and like
right.
classic MCU kind of like
Not
maybe
Jen.
battling it out, right? Not Jen. So that makes me think like she might bite the dust next episode.
Right,
And hopefully will sacrifice herself in like a heroic way, similar to Lilia and Dallas.
right. Just from a utility standpoint, she'll be there to kind of cut the conversation between Billy and Agatha. Like she'll be there to ask the questions that the other two can't ask because it wouldn't make sense, right?
Right.
And
True.
it's gonna be really cool to see what the end of the road looks like. And I'd never thought I'd say this when the show started and we were doing house by house and just kind of having fun with the trials or not having fun with the trials. But the fact that we're sitting here like genuinely wondering like, wow, what is really at the end of the road? Like what a cool accomplishment. that this show has achieved here. And another just quick accomplishment, another Jack Schaefer praise that I have here. Agatha Harkness, Jen, Alice, Deborah Jo Rupp, Lilia, Billy Maximoff. These are the characters in this show, and we give a shit. Like, we
Yeah,
genuinely care about them. And what a cool thing, because they came out of nowhere. They're a part of this bigger universe where Iron Man exists. And the fact that we can dial this deep in and care about these characters, it's what Guardians did, it's what Eternals failed to do. And it's just really cool that they still got their fastball in that sense. You know, like
totally.
introducing new characters is not off the board. And this show is big proof of that.
100%, man. I'm very excited for next week. I will definitely try to stay up next Wednesday and watch
Hmm.
both episodes back to back right at 9 o'clock so I can be in on all the conversations as soon as possible. Because
For sure.
who knows what's going to happen in these next two episodes? Literally anything can go. I mean, Elizabeth Olsen showing up is definitely on the table. Do I want it to happen? Absolutely. Do I think it will? Probably not, but it's on the table. You know, it's they've talked so much about the Scarlet Witch. And specifically you mentioned like her possible death. You know, I think Tommy is probably set in stone to pop up. We even had that line this episode where it's like, oh, reunited and like that kind of idea. And Billy's like, oh, like reunion, like, you know, really. Seemingly thinking of his brother. We'll see.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Post credit, I got nothing. I mean, it
Heard the
could be,
song today, by the way.
dude, that's not nothing. It can't be nothing. Like time in
They
a
love,
bottle, like obviously, like in a vacuum, it fits this episode so well, right?
yeah.
But they have to know what that is. Like they have to know what that says to
They keep
everybody.
doing it. They keep doing it,
It's
man.
insane,
I
man.
don't
It's
know. They keep
crazy.
teasing us. It's been since 2021, just teasing us with this. It's so funny.
Ugh, it's nuts. It's nuts. Ralph Boner, one of those interesting characters in the MCU.
I know.
It's awesome.
Funny.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, go re-listen to every single X-Men review that we had earlier this year. That's what I encourage you to do.
Great time. It
That
was
was
an
one of the good
awesome
ones,
time.
funny enough.
It definitely was.
Funny
100%.
enough.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Agatha All Along, episode 7. We'll be back on Monday with everything you need to know about the universes you love. There's a lot to dive through on Monday and the universes you love. A lot of spooky stuff to dive into, but it's not nearly as exciting as this. Um, and we're going to be doing that and also the Penguin review. And then next week, the big Agatha finale, where we will be joined by one of the best brains in the business, Thomas Carter Rochester. It's going to be a good time. For David, I'm Matt. Until then, we'll see you next time.